This is Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks of Master Plan Retirement Consultants. Listen in as we address your retirement concerns and provide insight to help put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, Retirement Roadmap Radio.
Hi folks, thanks for joining us and welcome to Retirement Roadmap with Master Plan Retirement Consultants. My name is Evan and with me as always, retirement planner Mark Fricks. How do you know that you're ready to retire? A common question in our industry, perhaps even the question. However, there is more to consider than some may think. Retirement is a monumental moment in most people's lives, signifying the end of one stage and the beginning of another. Today, we will be discussing points to keep in mind as you consider your own retirement outlook. Mark, do you think most folks you meet with initially understand the full scope of what it means to retire?
I don't think so. I mean, they've really never, most people have never voluntarily walked away from a paycheck. Rarely have they. And so that's a monumental step. I think it's just so many mixed emotions. It's funny, I was talking to a client this morning and he's like 6 months away from retirement. And I said, how are you feeling? And he said, it's weird. He said, I'm excited, but I'm also, a little scared. I know we have a plan and we've talked about all of this, but I'm just a little anxious. And I said, well, that's normal. Sure. Just a mixed emotion, what's it going to be like? And it's like, the town inside the wall. You've heard stories, but you don't really know what it looks like.
Right. Well, we are certainly going to discuss briefly the financial elements to retirement and preparing and make sure you're ready there. But more so, wanted to discuss some of the non-financial elements of retirement preparation. We will have an upcoming video and episode, depending on how you take in this content, of course, on a retirement checklist financially, so you can really go step by step. Is this taken care of? Is this taken care of? But today, it's going to be a little bit more of the other elements of retirement preparation that most people don't really consider until they find themselves in retirement. So very first and foremost, yes, the most important thing is, are you financially prepared? And from our perspective, do you have a plan?
Yeah, a plan takes so much of the unknown, the anxiousness out of anything. People that plan vacations, although you can get too detailed, I think sometimes, right?
Sure.
But people that plan their budget, people that plan, whatever, it goes smoother, but it also gives you a peace of mind. And then if you have contingency plans, it's even bigger. So yeah, having that plan takes a lot of that pressure off, things like that. I don't really understand, Evan, how people, I talk to an everyday lifer like, I retired last year. And I'm like, great, what'd you do to prepare? Well, I just turned in my resignation, turned on Social Security, and everything's, going pretty well. And maybe they operate that way. Maybe that's their, way of looking at life. I find that disconcerting if I were to do that.
Sure, and I think it's becoming more and more difficult to do that, no matter how stable you are. We've mentioned many times before, this is not our grandfather or father's retirement. We have a completely different world that we're living in. We don't have the same pensions we used to have. Honestly, Social Security and a pension combined probably took care of most people's situation.
Many times. And now you get, the complexities of taxes, and so much of our money now, I mean, when you had a pension, you pretty much know what your tax was going to be.
Right.
Based on how much money was coming into your pension. But with an IRA and 401ks and all that, and required minimum distributions, and as we talk about in our tax class, the ever-changing tax laws. Mm-hmm. I mean, you may have it figured out today, but they're written in pencil. Yeah. And they're going to change every couple of years based on who's in Washington and what's going on with things. I cannot tell you how many articles I've read just in the last month about Social Security. Mm-hmm. What can they do? What are they going to do? Oh, this is what I think they're going to do. This is what I think. Nobody knows.
Right.
Congress doesn't know. They can't agree on anything, So it's just so much more complex. And also it's a more volatile world, but it's a more volatile market.
Absolutely.
And so when you're dealing with markets, I mean, if you look at the history over this 20 years versus the 20 years before, we've talked about this before, the average return from 80 to 99 was almost 18%. Worst loss was 10. Well, the last 20 years, we've been averaging 6%, so a third, and the largest loss in 1 year is 36%. So it's so many more pieces coming together. And like you said, it's like, when you're a kid, you get these little wooden puzzles, and there's 10 pieces.
Yeah.
Well, now retirement is 500 pieces, right?
Yeah.
And you get all the little pieces into place.
Yeah. Well, and then there's so much more. Like you said, pensions are disappearing, but those are defined benefit plans, meaning you know what you're going to get in retirement. Right. We don't really have those that much anymore. Now we have defined contribution plans, 401ks, 403bs, everything else, meaning you know what you're putting in it, but you don't know what the performance is going to be like. You don't know what you're going to end up with. It's a lot harder to plan with those kind of uncertainties.
Excellent point. And of course, as we've talked about before as well, having a mortgage on your IRA, some of that money belongs to the IRS, and we don't know how much, depending on when you take it out and all that kind of good stuff. This is not a show or a program about that, but it's just kind of feeding into how do you do this without a plan, and I think it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just, we were talking about one spectrum of financial retirement planning. We haven't mentioned long-term care strategies, legacy goals. Are you supporting anyone at home? Do you have kids that rely on you? Do you have parents that rely on you? All of these things, I think, seek professional help. Find a holistic
maybe
retirement
more way
planner.
than one.
In more ways than one, yeah, seriously. It's not something that you want to take lightly, and you certainly want to be prepared. But again, we're going to do a full checklist episode for the financial side of retirement planning. But the next point I want to go into, are you emotionally prepared to leave your job? Well, what does that mean? Some people, especially long careers, our identities can be wrapped into our careers and our jobs. That's where we find our identity a lot of times. Are you emotionally ready to change?
Yeah, think about it. I know most of the time when I meet someone new, one of the first questions one of us asks the other is, what do you do? Because that's kind of who we are. So we can be wrapped up. This is kind of my identity. This is who I am. Yeah, this is what I do. I'm proud of it. I've got a great team. I've climbed the ladder or whatever. And so it's achievements, it's goals, it's success. We measure success by titles and money. And so to kind of walk away from that, I don't think people realize the extent that can affect them. Now, some people, not as much. Some of them are like, I'm so sick of this, I just want to get out. But others, they struggle with it, And I've got one client I go to a lot because he is very good at voicing how it's going, and he's been retired about 3 years now. And I'll never forget one of the first things he told me after retirement, and I think I've mentioned this before, is I miss my friends. I miss my comrades, he called them. I miss the men and women that work together on projects, and again, having goals for today and this week and next month. And, he said, I've got this long list at home, but it's just not the same. Yeah. And that's just one little component. It's just the anxiousness of how am I going to spend my time? Some people have this fear of, am I just going to find myself sitting around the house? Am I going to, I'm going to struggle to, to find things to do? And as you know, we have long discussions with new clients and clients that are approaching retirement about how are you going to spend your day? And many times they're like, travel. Yeah. I hear that a lot, Well, it's, unless you've got a lot of money, you can't travel every week and every day. And so that is good, but, maybe we start bringing up ideas. What are your hobbies? You have children, you have grandchildren. Where do they live? What parts of the country or world or whatever? Do you have a hobby that maybe you could make a little money from? Maybe create a little business and have a little tax break or whatever. And so we start kind of picking their brain and pulling that out because, again, emotionally, they don't know what it's going to be like until they get there.
Right. Well, and of course, if you were burnt out on your job or emotionally drained, that also is a good sign that you might be pretty ready for retirement, or at least altering what employment looks like, potentially part-time, or if you want to ease into that transition.
That's a good point, because a lot of times people say, I just can't do this anymore. I'm only 63. I don't want to quit work. I'm not stopping. I'd pass out or die or whatever, but I just don't want to do this. I want to do something to where I am financially free to do what I want to do. Think of another client. She's single and she loves gardening. So she went to work for a local nursery, and dealing with plants every day and the types and learning more about plants and things like that. Other people, I know in our area, at a certain age, you can actually take college courses for no cost. Now, you may not get credit for them, but I would love to go learn culinary arts or something like that, learn how to cook or whatever. So a lot of these discussions, because again, I think it comes down to how you plan to utilize your time. I think that can make you anxious if you're not really sure. And maybe it takes a few months to figure it out too, and that's okay. But that's something you've got to settle on. Or I've seen, I've seen clients come in here like 6 months after retirement, and they have aged. After I've been seeing them for 5 years before then, all of a sudden, and I think a lot of that has to do with just kind of, my goals are kind of gone. I don't know if it's a hope thing. I think it's just less active maybe. Sure. I don't know. The mental can affect the physical very much. And so that's concerning to me when I see something like that. And so it's a very complex situation. I think it could make for really a neat study. Maybe somebody's already done one. I don't know. And I'm kind of putting notes together too. I'm hoping that's going to be in the next book. Is that transition, not only before but after and during, and kind of what happens there.
That's great. And I think there are so many small things that we don't consider that are going to change, which brings me to my next point, replacing the structure of your life. When you're employed full-time, your life is structured very fully. Like, you have a step-by-step to your day. When you take that away, you've got a lot of time to fill, and to figure out how you want to do that. How are you going to spend your time in retirement? A lot of people talk about hobbies, which are great, but are you gonna pick up a new instrument and do that the whole time, or
play golf every day?
Some people do. My father-in-law actually nearly. Hobbies, part-time work we mentioned before is a good option, especially in something that you really find interesting and fulfilling, something that's challenging you to learn and grow in areas that you haven't before. We talked about travel. Volunteering is a huge one. Do something outside of yourself. Give your time and your efforts and your knowledge, maybe even something that you are used to doing or you have a lot of experience in that you can pass on. Volunteering is a great outlet. Cultivating relationships, I think, is one of the biggest ones. We don't realize how social work is sometimes. Maybe we're not like best friends with our coworkers, but we socialize every day with these relationships, and cultivating that, whether it's just with your family, your wife, your kids, your grandkids, or beyond that, the community at large, church, or whatever else. We are social beings, and that's a huge aspect to mental health and physical health.
Yeah. And I think getting outside your family is helpful too. I mean, if you socialize only with your family, I'm not saying that's unhealthy at all. Yeah. I'm just saying that I think it keeps you more well-rounded. I've got clients everywhere from being part of the Appalachian Hiking Club to going down to the local pool, playing pickleball. Yeah, that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
Just clubs, organizations. I had somebody recently. They're very good at tech and websites, so they're now the webmaster at their church. And that's kind of their thing. But that social interaction, you're right, it is so critical. And if you shut yourself off, either to yourself or even just to your family, or maybe just to a couple, for a lot of people that wouldn't be healthy. Some people it may be great. It's an individual choice, but that's things you've got to talk about and think about, and many people have not.
Well, and we saw that firsthand in COVID when so many people started working from home. When we lost that social connection, we saw the effects that it had on mental health and emotional health. And
weight gain and alcoholism and
sure. If it gets that bad, yeah,
spending a lot of money on a new pool, all those kinds of things.
Yes. That may be that.
That might be the good part.
If that's in your retirement budget, we can certainly plan for that. Yeah. I want to take one quick moment, folks, to remind you to check out our website, masterplanretire.com. We have multiple retirement resources, schedules to our webinars and seminars, classes that cover many different retirement topics. Most importantly, there's a Schedule Now button where you can schedule your complimentary consultation with Mark. That's an opportunity to discuss your retirement hopes and dreams and goals, and to get some feedback on your own plan for retirement. So feel free to take us up on that. Again, that's masterplanretire.com, or call us at our office, 770-980-9262. The next point is maybe the most important, and it sounds really simple, but you'll be able to attest how often this is overlooked. Make sure you and your partner are on the same page.
Yeah, and again, sometimes it takes somebody like us to actually get them to even thinking about being on the same page. You know, and I've said this before. I'll have a couple sitting in front of me, and I'll start maybe with this, one of the spouses, doesn't matter. And, oh yeah, I've always wanted to live here or drive there or travel here or do that or learn to do this. And the spouse looks over at them and says, what?
Yeah.
First of all, I have no interest in that. I didn't know you did either, type of thing, which may be okay. If you want to learn scuba diving and your spouse doesn't, that's probably fine. But yeah, we kind of bring, I joke a lot about maybe we need a counseling degree as well, because we've actually had 1 or 2 divorces because of retirement. I mean, all of a sudden you've got a husband and wife at home together, and until that, maybe they both worked outside the home, maybe one worked at home, maybe one was a housewife or a house husband or whatever, but all of a sudden you get 2 people coming together and you've not really discussed. I mean, I've told this story many times about my parents. My mom, about 2 weeks later, told my dad, said, get out of the house, go to the garage. He had a big garage with lots of tools and things to do, but she said, you're in my way. You're driving me crazy. so he did. He worked on TVs part-time. He found things to do. And they've been married like between 75 and 80 years. So it must have worked. I don't know. But we have had 1 or 2 divorces from people just getting in each other's way. Now, that probably meant they had issues before and all that stuff. But again, getting it out on the table, understanding roles and purposes, because even my mom, who was a stay-home mom almost 95% of the time, still needed purpose and goals and things like that, and whether it be with my dad or whatever, but they learned how to kind of build those together.
Yeah.
And I think that helped a lot too. So communication, not being afraid to talk about it, not being afraid to have separate interests. In fact, I think it's healthy, like we kind of mentioned earlier. Just be honest about that, and make sure though that it fits into what money you have too. If you're both talking about, well, we're going to travel Europe for 6 months, and you have $300,000 to last a lifetime. I want to rethink that, but you kind of get the idea. Maybe go to Vegas. Don't they have a lot of different casinos with different themes, like Europe and all that kind of stuff? But anyway, not to digress. But yeah, it's such a complex subject, and I know we're not doing it service, but we're trying to.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and emotionally ready for both people. Are you? For a couple, are you both retiring at the same time? Because that can be a heavier weight if both people are experiencing all of the emotions and different facets of retirement. And if you're both doing that at the same time, we certainly have clients who do retire, couples retire at the same time. A lot of them stagger because it makes maybe more sense financially and for their financial plan, but not always. Sometimes they retire together. And just considering, okay, what is that initial shock to the system, shock to the lifestyle going to be if we're both suddenly out of structure and it just kind of cast away into this big open sea of time, available time.
At the same time, yeah. I actually, three clients come to mind immediately where they staggered, and part of it was because of age. One partner was older than the other and had been at the job longer, and maybe the other one wasn't old enough to be on Medicare or something, whatever. But one was about 5 years. The husband retired 5 years before the wife did. So he learned to cook. Mm-hmm. So when she came home, dinner was on the table. And I've actually have 2 clients they honey, as long as you're willing to work. And, the other partner loved what they did, so they kept working, and the husband learned to cook, and cook really well, and would have dinner on the table when they came home, have the house clean. And so that's a way of saying, well, I'm going to learn how this works. Mm-hmm. You love what you do, go a few more years, but they still had a plan. Yeah. They still talked about it. They still knew what they were doing. And so, I think that's a great point, Evan, is have one ease into it, kind of learn how it works, whether it be, like you said, financially or emotionally, whatever it may be. And then the other one, step in at some point later. And again, we could come into a lot of reasons financially why that might work better, but not so much about that today. But again, I think that's a good point, that emotionally, then the first one that retired can kind of help the second one. Mm-hmm. This is what it's going to be like. The thing I hear from almost every retiree is, we're having a meeting. Have a good weekend. Well, every day's a weekend. Whatever type of thing. So. So anyway, it's a subject that we probably should have had a guest, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or somebody that could.
Yeah, maybe we will sometime.
We should do that.
Yeah. So the next point we touched a little bit on, but I want to give a little bit more detail on it. Plan for health, and that's maintaining. If you don't already have an active lifestyle, plan for that. Use the opportunity to change your patterns in life if you don't already pursue an active lifestyle. And I don't mean that everyone has to be on a CrossFit competition team or anything else like that. Even if it's just walking and getting your steps in daily, there's so many benefits that come with that. Longevity, of course. Even if it could be social, so maintain if it's a team sport like we discussed pickleball, or even your walking buddies or something like that. Maintaining consistency in a healthy lifestyle can carry many benefits. Obviously the physical health, but we also know our mental and emotional health is directly affected by our physical activity. The long-term potential, you could potentially save money on medical bills. I mean, that goes a long way, especially being active. But the social aspects of it too, it's hard to stress how important that is, and how that can become a pretty easy and reliable way to create some of that social interaction and relational cultivation that we mentioned earlier as well.
Well, I think maybe a lot of people may not realize how much exercise they get from going to work.
Yeah.
And I don't know, some people have very active jobs, some not so active, but even an office job, you walk around some, hopefully you walk around some, and you get at least some steps in, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you just retire and sit at home and have no kind of plan at all, I remember my in-laws, they got to where they started walking before retirement, I guess in their 50s, and they religiously almost every day when they got home from work, they went for a walk, and it was healthy, but also they talked about their day and shared with each other and things like that too. And then it just naturally evolved into retirement, So I think that's huge. You don't have, like you say, you don't have to go join a gym or whatever. It can be something as simple as walking, biking, swimming is a big thing. I think for folks as we age, it's easier on our bodies. I've got a lot of clients that have quit jogging because it's not as good on your body, and maybe the cycling or whatever. But it's really what you enjoy doing. But more than anything, do it.
Yeah, and if you can combine it into a social activity, again, what a great opportunity. And for couples as well, it's a great opportunity. Like you said, the walking and reflecting on your life together and just spending that time together. There's a kettlebell coach that I follow some of his advice and some of his direction, and he says to train like it's your job. And that doesn't mean that, 8 hours a day I'm training, but it means the consistency and dedication to the time allotted, that becomes your job. And hey, guess what? If you're retiring, you've got a lot of job time available. So interesting mental approach to that concept. Like that. So the last thing I want to mention before we close out, I didn't realize how close we were on time. Give yourself time to adjust. How are you feeling in retirement? Have an opportunity to reflect. Are there unexpected difficulties that have arisen? Adapt your plans, set new goals, stay curious, and be easy on yourself.
And that's kind of, I think, a way we can help a lot too, because we have clients come in maybe a month or two after retirement, and then 6 months again later, or stay in touch with us. How's it going? What's going on? Not just financially, but again, what are you doing? How are you spending your time? Things like that. So that's kind of a checkup. And so I think that is important as well. Yeah. Sure.
Well, just as we know, creating the value in a financial plan for retirement also, what are you going to do with your days? So we really appreciate you guys joining us today. Mark, would you like to share any parting words?
Just bookmark the website, masterplanretire.com. Take advantage of the complimentary consultation. And remember, always, plan well and prosper. Take care.
This was Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks of Master Plan Retirement Consultants. To schedule a complimentary consultation, go to masterplanretire.com or call 770-980-9262. Thanks for listening, and remember, plan well and prosper.
All matters discussed during this show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. Advisory services offered through Master Plan Retirement Consultants, a registered investment advisor in the state of Georgia. Mark Fricks and Master Plan Retirement Consultants are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.